Welcome back. We're here with Spencer from Soul Mushrooms. Spencer, how are you today?
Great. I really appreciate you having me here today, Easton.
Of course, man. It's great to get on the podcast, chat with you, learn more about what you got cooking here. So you started Soul Mushrooms almost a year ago from today. How did this begin for you?
So I was a chef for years. I have a culinary background, and during the pandemic, I gained more interest in the food that I was cooking in plant medicine. And once you kind of realize that a lot of our food is sprayed with chemicals and organic, it kind of wakes you up to where's it all coming from, and you just realize that it's industrial farmed and there's no love and care put into it. It's just about mass production. And that from that point, I started getting into gardening, and then I left the industry to get into agriculture. From there, I started learning about plant medicines, specifically mushrooms, reishi, lion's mane, turkey tail, and it's hard to really learn a lot about that stuff. Especially when you're at a farm that really is kind of secretive about their cultivation process. I was in the fields; they had a different uh, department for their mushrooms, and they weren't really big in the medicinals. So I started doing my homework, and I was fascinated. I found value. These mushrooms have been used for thousands of years in Eastern medicine. So I started learning the cultivation process, and once I started, I got hooked, and that was
That's incredible. And it's very interesting that you kind of went from the chef background to cooking food for people. The ingredients probably weren't the best, right? I mean, and then you kind of transitioned to now the more Eastern medicine, the mushrooms, things like that. Was there an eye opener? Like, was there one experience where you were like, wow, these ingredients are in this food. I need to make a change?
it was a series of information rabbit holes that I went.
Yeah.
And once you kind of realize the way the farming industry works and how there's the number of small scale family farms has diminished drastically over the last 50 years, and then you start to think about our healthcare system, and people are sick all the time, and that ended up becoming just this the light bulb that clicked at one point where I was like, yeah, they're kind of poisoning our food. Be more conscious of this and support local farms. And then you start to look into the pharmaceutical industry, and there's a pill for everything, but that pill doesn't really get to the root of the issue. That pill just kind of suppresses the symptoms, ultimately leading to further issues later down the line. And that's when I started diving deeper into plant medicine and realizing that there's plants for many of our illnesses here.
Yeah.
You can't profit off of healthy people, unfortunately, and that's kind of the way things are right now. A lot of these plant medicines have kind of just been forgotten or brushed under the rug, and then just supplemented with pharmaceutical. And that's when I realized I wanted to get more involved with this and share this information with as many people as I could. And with that became a way to supply medicinals through mushrooms.
Yeah, and you're really putting a focus on the mushroom extracts. What is the difference between like consuming the mushroom like a food versus taking the extract?
Yeah, so mushrooms are very dense in nutrients. Many would say they're essential vitamins, minerals, and proteins. I know a lot of people where their mushrooms are the majority of their diet, because you really can supplement everything you need through them. But that's the nutritional side. There's the medicinal side, and that's where extractions are needed. So cooking and eating mushrooms is going to get you and unlock the nutrients. If you don't cook your mushrooms, you're actually getting little to no nutrients out of it.
Wow.
Kind of the opposite of vegetables, where cooking it can deplete nutrients in some of them. It's the opposite for mushrooms. So the cell wall of the mushroom is made of chitin. It's an abundant polysaccharide found throughout nature. It's actually what crustaceans make their shell out of, but our body cannot break that down and digest it. So the best way to basically break down the chitin is heat treatment, cooking. And in doing so, you unlock the nutrients. You also prevent potential digestion issues because eating a raw mushroom isn't really going to break down properly. So, you eat a raw mushroom, you get water content out of it. Kind of defeats the purpose of why we want them. Now, the medicinal side involves an extraction, whether it's hot water extraction and or an ethanol extraction. Some of these mushrooms have water soluble compounds. In fact, all of them do. But some of these mushrooms also require an ethanol extraction to get the bulk of or the most important medicinal compounds, like lion's mane, for example. Uh, they have beta glucans and polysaccharides and prebiotics that can, of course, regulate the immune system, improve beneficial bacteria in the gut microbiome. But the reason why people want lion's mane are those brain boosting properties, the nootropics, and those need to be extracted in ethanol. So there's really just two sides to it, the nutritional side, the medicinal side, when it comes to consumption.
Interesting. I didn't know any of that. That's very, very interesting, especially with the cooking part of it. You would kind of lump the mushroom in with the vegetables, right? Like, oh, they're all the same. So that's interesting. And you also mentioned beta glucans. Could you kind of dive into what beta glucans are and like what their importance is?
Yeah, definitely. Beta glucans are the hallmark of pretty much all mushrooms, medicinal and gourmet. Just higher concentration in certain mushrooms like cordyceps, reishi, turkey tail, and lion's mane. Beta glucans are immunomodulators. They regulate your immune system. So your immune system can overperform or underwork, and beta glucans will help bring your immune system into that Goldilocks zone where it needs to be. It's like taking your immune system to the gym.
Wow, interesting. And with you having a chef background, what is your go-to recipe for cooking uh mushrooms?
Yeah, so these days I do keep it simple with just a little butter and garlic. Sometimes I add a little soy sauce and honey. It's kind of the foundation of a teriyaki. But the most interesting dishes, for me at least, are the lion's mane, and you can do some really cool dishes. One of them is crab cakes. Very popular because the texture of lion's mane is very similar to crab meat and it's slightly neutral in flavor, so it allows you to have the freedom of imparting flavor into it. So crab cakes are great, and now the most popular trend that I get commonly asked at every farmer's market, the lion's mane steak. Like I said, it's very easy to manipulate, and you can make literally a steak out of the lion's mane with that meaty, almost fatty like quality, similar to Wagyu, where it's got the meaty bite to it, but super tender. And again, you can impart whatever seasoning and flavors you like into that dish.
And has there ever been a time with your mushroom extracts where you have healed someone?
A few cases actually. Now, a common one with reishi is improved sleep quality. Uh, that is pretty much the main reason why people want reishi right now, other than regulating the immune system. But it's calming. It provides an calming effect. It's an adaptogen, helps the body adapt to stress and improve sleep quality. And that's the most feedback I'll get from that mushroom extract specifically but I have a customer who has a Vishla, it's a type of dog that developed tumors. And my reishi extract also has turkey tail in it. And turkey tail is a mushroom that's now being used in cancer treatment. It's a part of chemotherapy. This started 30 years ago in Japan, then China, and now Western medicine is implementing it. The highest concentration of those beta glucans, other polysaccharides that are used in chemotherapy, PSK and PSP, that are found in high quantities in turkey tail. So they started giving their dog my longevity extract. About a month later, they said that the tumors are almost gone. I was excited to hear that. It wasn't a total surprise because it's not the first time I've heard these stories happening. And then another month went by, and their vet reached out to me, wanted to know more about this. And I started exploring the idea of making dog treats with mushrooms, which isn't actually proprietary or new. There are companies doing that, and they all have the same benefits for animals as they do dogs. I mean, humans. So that's one example. And then I just commonly get feedback all the time, depending on what the extract is. Um, and yeah, it's just the beginning of mushrooms making their way into mainstream medicine again.
Yeah, it's very exciting to see these stories being put out there and being like, hey, you can heal things without, like you said, without chemotherapy, without radiation, without just medicine in general, or the modern medicine in general, really destroying people's body. And you also have your own laboratory where you grow the mushrooms. Could you kind of talk about that process of growing a mushroom from kind of, like start to finish?
Yeah, definitely. So um, mushrooms have survived eons. They're one of the first organism on Earth, living in harmony with other types of bacteria. But when you take them out of their natural environment, uh, they no longer can. Well, they're susceptible to bacterial contamination, which is why a laboratory is necessary. If you think of the movie War of the Worlds, where the extraterrestrials came down here, they came to take over our planet, but they succumb to our bacterias, what we live in harmony with. And it's a similar concept where you're not in your natural environment, and you have no immune system to these bacterias. And that's similar with mushrooms. So the beginning process starts in a laboratory with a petri dish. Two methods that I use: agar, which is just a petri dish. Agar, it's a plant gelatin with some type of nutrient. I use light malt extract, and I'll start with liquid culture or even a tissue sample. I could go to the grocery store, buy a mushroom, and basically dissect it, get a piece of tissue sample, and get it onto sterile agar, and it can start to grow out there. The mycelium, which is like the root system of the mushroom, will start to expand out. And then I can use that to either make a liquid culture, which is a three-dimensional expansion of the mycelium, and either use the agar, the liquid culture, to inject it into sterile grains. I use oat and sorghum, also known as Milo. There's a lot of different ones you can use: rye berry, corn, millet. And of course, sterilization is necessary. So I have flow hoods, which are laboratory HEPA filters that are drawing in air from the room and passing it through this HEPA filter to provide sterile air for my working space. A lot of isopropyl is necessary to clean surfaces, and everything gets sterilized. So the grains get soaked for 24 hours. I dry them, and then I pressure sterilize them for about 2 hours. After that process, I'll add that like a wedge of that agar, or inject that liquid culture into that sterile bag of grains. And from there, the mycelium of the mushroom will start to grow out and feed off of those grains. Each grain is considered an inoculation point. So if I have, let's say, a 5 pound bag of grains that have been fully colonized and permeated by this mushroom's mycelium, I'll break it apart, and then I'll add it to sterile substrate, which I use oak and a little bit of organic non-GMO soy hull, which supplies the nutrients and supplementation necessary. So think of pellets for smoking meats. They come compressed. I add them to a polypropylene bag that can withstand high temperatures. We call them unicorn bags. They basically have a filter patch on it for fresh air exchange. I'll add 5 pounds of the substrate, 5 pounds of water. It will basically turn into a sawdust. It gets steam sterilized for 18 hours. It looks like a log, which is the idea for creating a matrix for these mushrooms,
Yeah.
simulate how they grow in nature. And once those blocks cool down, I put them in front of my flow hood. I'll open them up and I'll pour those sterile grains out into them. So, 5 pound bag of colonized grains or mushroom mycelium will make as much as ten of those blocks. And then from there, I'll seal it, shake up the bag or the block, and then let it colonize. And the more grains and the more distributed they are, the faster colonization. So it'll look like a log, and then from there it'll be completely covered and permeated with mycelium. It'll look almost completely white. That's when they're ready to go into their fruiting room, which is right now I have several of them, 10 by 10 grow tent, and it's regulated and basically turned into the perfect environment for them. Very clean environment, uh, humidity around 90%. CO2 has to be exhausted out and fresh air has to be brought back in. So mushrooms breathe oxygen, release CO2. They're more of an animal or mammal than they are a plant. So totally different kingdom. And then temperature, which I keep around 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on the species, and light. And a lot of people think mushrooms need to be grown in total darkness. Not a necessity for colonization, but it's paramount for their fruiting because you're simulating how they grow in nature. And, uh, you know, you find mushrooms growing on trees outside or in the ground, and they still need light. They're not photosynthetic, but they're photosensitive. So light will help with pigmentation and allow them to finish their life cycle properly.
That this is very interesting because I've never really dove down this rabbit hole, and you're opening up a whole new world to me. Like, holy crap, this is very intricate and it's very interesting. And you also talked in the beginning about health and how kind of the Western side of medicine and big pharma and modern medicine in general do not involve holistic practices like mushrooms. Why do you think this is?
Um, well, I believe it's intentional. This might, but it's my and if you really go back and look into history of John D. Rockefeller and him basically controlling the curriculum in medical society, and they took out homeopathic medicine, replaced it with pharmaceutical chemicals, and you believe if you can believe it or not, but it's a way to keep people unhealthy so that they continuously have to pay for healthcare and other medicines because of their poor lifestyle and from the food we eat down to the basically the laboratory made uh, medicines based. And what does it do? Causes another problem later down the line, and pharmaceutical companies continue to get wealthier and wealthier. And that's another rabbit hole.
Yes.
But I think that that homeopathic medicine was taken out and replaced so that uh, pharmaceutical companies can continue to make money off of sick people.
It's almost like they did it on purpose, right?
My,
Yes, yes. And what about life makes you smile?
my daughter, for sure, family. That's number one. And being able to do something you enjoy, being able to create. I think that's a big reason why we're here is to create. Creativity is so important, and we lose sight of that in public school systems, really, where people are becoming less creative and not making something and um, following the rules, and eventually we lose sight of that. And I think being able to express yourself through work or art is super important, and that is something that brings me happiness. I'm able to provide food, medicine, and another part of my business, very small part, is more of a passion project, is creating reishi art, and have some on my Instagram. I bring them to the farmers markets, and I'm able to create these really interesting, one of a kind reishi pieces that are preserved and will last many many years. And I wish I can actually pull one up if you want to see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait for 1 second. So this is kind of a showstopper at my markets, and it's been a lot of fun for me. But this is a reishi piece that I've been working on, and it's complete, and it's unique. It's one of a kind. This is not how reishi traditionally looks. This is a one of the 6 species of reishi I grow, black reishi. Here's another one, a very commonly used one in Eastern medicine, Ganoderma lingji. They're all of the same genus, Ganoderma meaning shiny skin. And then there's many species, and they all have their own different benefits. But they're super unique, fun, and they're sensitive to light. So traditionally, the reishi will form a conch, which is just it's normal looking nature, looks like a bracket fungus is what it is. But if I grow them in an environment that has very high CO2, because they breathe oxygen, release that CO2. If I don't exhaust that CO2 out, the mushroom will continue to grow tall, searching for fresh air. And that's how I'm able to get what we call antlers. And then from there, they're sensitive to the light, so they'll grow into the direction of the light, allowing me to express myself through a mushroom.
Yeah.
And do bonsai. That was a big part of my life before I got into mushrooms, where you're manipulating the growth in the direction and flow of how this plant or tree grows. And I've learned to do that with Reiki, and that's just another thing that um, keeps me going and brings happiness. And people love them. They buy them, and they have a forever reishi piece in their home as decor, or whatever it is that they find the beauty in.
And you seem like a very spiritual person as well. Diving deep into a lot of different rabbit holes. Why do you think it's so important for people to have pieces like that, or just art and expression like in their life?
To keep yourself grounded and keep some type of connection with nature. We've really severed our connection with nature in so many ways, by living in condensed cities, concrete jungles, and we're separated from Mother Earth and nature itself. And it can be a reminder, and it can also just allow us to just stay connected. And mushrooms do that on other levels. There are the other medicinal mushrooms, um, the psilocybin or cubensis, or commonly known as magic mushrooms, and those have been used for thousands of years as well in another manner, which is allowing us to connect deeper to spirit and to our higher self, to Mother Nature, the divine, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of synonyms for it. And those mushrooms allow us to reconnect with that and understand that um, we're all connected in one way, shape, or form, and on an energetic level, and allow you to understand life a little bit better and why we're here. And I believe that is also to create, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So, yeah, mushrooms are, I think they're all magic, specifically the magic ones, of course. And as you already know, they're becoming more popular for medicinal purposes. We call it the third wave. So essentially, the first wave was our ancestors using these psychedelic plant medicines to connect with the divine, spirit itself. And then in the 50s and 60s, they were reintroduced back into society, but more on a recreational level. And a lot of people found value in that, but it was also demonized. That would have been the second wave. And now we're in the third wave, where mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms, and other psychedelic plant medicines are being reintroduced in mainstream medicine, surprisingly. And you'll have Johns Hopkins and other medical societies that are using psychedelics on a macro or micro level, meaning taking a macro dose and going deep within and overcome anything from depression, um, PTSD, addiction, and there's a lot of really cool stories. Even 60 Minutes did a segment on that, people that were facing terminal illness or serious addiction, and a macro dose of psychedelic mushrooms used in a therapeutic session, PAT, psychedelic assisted therapy, allowed people to heal in many ways and understand kind of the things I mentioned before, that we're all divine beings. We're spiritual beings, just a human experience. And then there's the microdosing, which has become very, very popular. And I get asked about it every week. And that's taking a microdose of psilocybin mushrooms, to where you don't feel the psychoactive effects of it. But it's helping people drastically with depression, anxiety, and just working on ourselves. And mushrooms are able to get us to where we want to be mentally and even physically. And lion's mane is now being utilized with psilocybin and on microdosing levels, because they help open up neural pathways and support neurological function on multiple levels. So there's that synergistic relationship between the two. And in the end, I think all mushrooms work synergistically. They're meant to be together because they're all basically a team of medicinal working on our body and mind.
I love that. I have two more questions. If you could have dinner with two people, one person from the past and one person from the present, who would it be and why?
Person from the past, uh, Terrence McKenna. Terrence McKenna is like the godfather of psychedelic mushrooms. He's like the first psychonaut. He has brought forth an abundance of information on the psychedelic mushrooms, dimethyltryptamine, another psychedelic plant medicine, and and it has really shed light in a way that people understand them so much better on that third wave or first wave type of level, getting more in touch with spirit. Extremely wise man. Um, he's no longer with us, but his legacy lives on, and he's still referenced all throughout the mycology community. He's definitely someone to look into if you haven't yet. If any of your viewers haven't, he's got amazing talks that are all over the internet and YouTube. And yeah, he's been a pioneer for mycology for a very long time.
Amazing. And what about the present?
Present, who would I like to have dinner with? That's a good one. I'd like to actually meet with Paul Stamets, and Paul
Okay.
Stamets, is a that is well known right now. And there's a lot of controversy behind his his supplements, his mushroom extracts. And this is a debate that's been ongoing for years, and I've been asked about many times: is mycelium versus fruiting body, what is better? And it's still up for debate. And there's the problem with mycelium is that if there's mushroom mycelium in a medicinal mushroom product, it is grown on a grain, and it dilutes it. So I'd love to pick at his brain and understand his methodology behind his process, and bring some clarity to my own personal questions.
I like those two. I have one more question. Why did you decide to partner with us and offer the discounts?
I saw the value in getting more exposure, and obviously you seem very honest and willing and looking to help other small, and I think that's super valuable on both ends. And what's important to me is getting this out in front of more people. And I think any outlet or network or platform where this information can be provided and shed light to those who don't fully understand it, I think is super valuable. And I'd like my company to grow. And I'm third party tested for active compounds, verifying that everything that I'm putting into it is coming through my product. And yeah, I'd like to grow, and I'd like everyone to grow with me.
Awesome. I love it, man. Well, that's all the questions I have. How can people find you? And what is one thing you want to leave people with?
You can find me on my website, soulmushrooms.com. That's for getting more information about what we do and our products, and then Instagram. And yeah, Instagram's a great way to see my process and see more of what I do. I'm on TikTok as well. I just got to get a little more with that platform. Social media is not my strong point, but I'm trying to interconnect all of my platforms so that um, you, people can see more about my process and what I'm doing with mushrooms. What was the other question? What do
What's like one thing you want to leave people with?
all mushrooms are magic. I think everyone should dive deeper into that. Everyone should do their own due diligence. There's always skepticism, and I get it all the time at farmers markets. And I think it's important for people to find their own truth, whether it's the psychedelic mushrooms, the medicinals, or the gourmets. Um, find out for yourself instead of questioning things without diving deeper into it, because we should always question things. But it's important for us to discern and do our own homework to find out um, the real value, and figure out your own truth.
I love that. Well, Spencer, thank you so much for coming on. I actually learned a lot about, like just the mushroom and the process. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. I appreciate you having me here today. For anyone listening, uh, I'd love for you to check out my social media page and learn a little bit more about mushrooms because I'm learning every single day. It doesn't
Yes. Well, thanks, Spencer. I appreciate it.
take care. Have a good one.